Hi.
Hi,
Green room.
green room.
149.
Here we are.
Let's see who joins.
Yay, team.
We had a good stats week. I like to talk about stats.
I don't like to talk about stat. It's not my thing.
I don't either, really. But we had a good stats week. I suppose it pays to be consistent. If you catch my drift. Like recording, posting.
Is that what you meant?
Yeah. We don't have to talk about it. So what's the temp? What was the temp today in Austin? Let's do the weather.
Okay, we can totally do the weather.
I might have beat you.
No, I don't think you did.
Well, let's compare notes.
So, we're currently 77.
Oh no. Okay. Close. We got to a high of 73.
We had a high of 81 today.
Yeah. Well, it's only February.
Yeah,
late Feb. We're in the late Feb. But yeah. I mean, I'm wearing a sweatshirt now only because I'm back inside the house, but it was nice.
Yeah, I mean, like, sunny. What's it's kind of dumb. I mean, there's no way to plan at this point. Literally, you have to figure out kind of what's going on outside, like every day, because every day could be totally different. Like apparently Thursday this week, we're going to be in the 40s. So, yeah, I mean, it's but then by the weekend, that 40. We'll have a high of 75.
Yeah.
So
that tracks with me too. It shows 37 on Thursday and then up to 60s on the weekend. Yeah. It is dumb.
It's just dumb. I'm just going to say it's just dumb. I'm not even going to try and find the right vocabulary word to sound super smart. It's just dumb.
That's a vocab word.
Dumb.
Yeah. Dumb. Well, anyway, yeah. I was trying to find something more appealing than stats.
Oh, weather surpasses stats all day, every day.
Yeah. Well, I like comparing. I'm glad that you're not yet in the heat wave, but we had our little micro heat wave today. So our Michigan. There's a meme. There's quite a few memes or, jokes about Michigan winter, right? So this is the spring of deceit, I believe that we're in. I think our friends, Cormac has talked about this joke before.
Deceit even.
Yeah, because we think it's warm. It is warm for us, but it's not actually over. We will crash back down into the freezing temps. Just note that.
Yeah, so do not plan your spring garden too early.
No, the old rule of thumb was Memorial Day. Don't plant before Memorial Day.
That's in May, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, you could still have frost in May in Michigan.
Not I'm in a window of about 2 or 3 weeks. I'm trying to figure out in the next 2 or 3 weeks, when do I go full bore at the garden?
Into the garden. Oh, yeah, no. No, it would be, as a friend of mine likes to say, a fool's errand.
Yeah.
To try and plant even 3 weeks from now, which I will be going on vacation 3 weeks from now. Well, let's say 3 weeks from last Friday. Going on a cruise.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. We've not talked about my feeling about cruises, have we?
No, should we? I'm always asking for advice.
I think we're about to. So, is this a themed cruise?
No, it's just a Caribbean cruise.
It's not like Tools cruise.
Oh, like heavy metal cruise.
Yeah.
I've seen some things about that. I don't know if I
I
can
mean-
handle that. It is
No.
not themed.
It's not like
It's just
I
a
like
boat.
true crime cruise.
I'm gonna look into that, but it's
Yeah.
not that. Yeah. So
Like Twin Peaks cruise.
well, that could be fun too.
That draws. Yeah.
You'll
Maybe.
go to that cruise.
And what's crazy, I like the water. I really do. I mean, it's.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
You don't like being on a boat on the water?
well, no. I don't mind boats. That's got nothing to do with it. But like cruise ships, do you really consider that a boat?
It's like a skyscraper that floats.
Basically, I mean, is it? I mean, have you seen those videos like where like the cruise ship like gets sketchy and like I mean the water's kind of like pouring in or like going up on the windows and
Oh, I don't want to talk about that. No way. Well, I don't know. Maybe we're not that high up, but
see, there you go. Yeah,
we do have a
See?
balcony.
Oh, see, I don't know if I want one. Like, I mean, like the water's surging over. Like, if you're on the boat, like, how big's the boat? How many people are on the boat with you?
I don't know.
That seems like a lot of people to be on.
I think it's going to be like
space.
thousands.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
It's a lot. It's a city on the water.
Like with like water slides. I mean, like what? I mean,
It's got like a go-kart track too.
yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. Is that
I
all
think you have to pay extra for
necessary? Is that really necessary? Like, can't you just get on the boat, enjoy the view, have a good dinner, get off the boat, go to the port, enjoy the port, get back on the boat?
Well, I think you need to found and operate your own cruise line and stage it that way.
So I'm the cruise director now? Like,
Yeah, you are it, and we will follow that game plan. Yeah, get on the boat, enjoy dinner, get off the boat, enjoy the port.
wasn't Isaac the bartender? Can I be the bartender? I don't want to be the cruise director, even though you've given me that role right now.
Well, you have a plan, you have a strategy.
Yeah. Haven't you ever seen the show Love Boat?
Oh God, yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah. I mean, that's about all I've got. I mean, it's
Oh,
Isaac.
man.
Like Isaac was like the bartender and just seemed very, like he appeared to question the whole thing about the cruise as well. Like he had the same level of skepticism that I think that I'm experiencing right now, and that's about as much of my memory on that show goes. So,
Yeah.
well, there's the song too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because
and there was also, I was thinking of Fantasy Island too.
I was gonna say, it's like, and then there's this bleed through, like in my mind.
Was it a spin-off?
Maybe.
I feel like it was a spin-off of something.
I mean, because then like, we can do this whole like green room as like, it's almost like word association. So you got Love Boat, you've got Fantasy Island, which makes me go to Ricardo Montalban, which
And
then
Tattoo.
makes no skip Tattoo.
Oh.
Like, because Tattoo, you could go to the band Tattoo, which is that's cool too. But but I would go Ricardo Montalban, and then I would go Wrath of Khan. Star Trek.
Was he Khan?
He was Khan.
Oh, that makes sense.
In the original, he was Khan in the original series, and then in Star Trek 2, the movie.
Those were good. So speaking of movies,
Mm-hmm.
we've got our friend Chris jumped on for a sec. So welcome, Chris. Or N3 Architecture. So speaking of movies, last Saturday was
yes,
the Flint Symphony Orchestra playing the Danny Elfman original soundtrack or score, I guess, to 1989 Batman, Tim Burton's Batman, which was so much fun.
I mean, like, if I had been planning ahead, I could have done a Batman sketch for you so that we could really go into it in the episode. That would be.
Oh, I thought I gave you that. I thought I mentioned.
You did. It's like, I'm telling you, the brain's not working the way it's supposed to.
On a heater last week, right? Yeah. So.
You were. It was intense.
So, well, it was a lot of fun. They didn't play like the Prince songs, which I was really hoping they would do that too.
How do you skip?
Well, they just let the movie part, the movie play the Prince songs, but then they did all the other thematic.
I thought you were saying that they cut the Prince songs out of the whole.
Oh no, there was no cuts.
I was like, how does that work? That seems very suspect. So
no, it was great. It was fantastic. Just the sound, it's all the bass and the cello playing all the long notes of that theme song. I don't want to even try and hum it because it would ruin it for all of us. But
there was a moment there where it looked like you were about to like pull the bowstring.
I played cello when I was in high school.
What?
Yeah, I am I don't own one anymore, so I guess I can't call myself a cellist. But yeah, a stringed instrument player.
So this is one of the
7 years. Junior high, or what do you call it, middle school too.
That would have been perfect for when Evelyn asked, like, Kurt, what does Jamie not know about you?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
well, I forgot my. What do I know about myself?
You threw in like, I got a brother. Yeah.
I didn't use. Did I use that?
Yeah, you used your brother. Yeah.
Wait, why would I? You already know that.
I know, but she phrased it in the form of, what does other people not necessarily know about? It wasn't just me. I I'm the other one. I'm just sort of sitting there patiently for you to answer, like as if I'm like, I'm going to learn something new.
And I came up with nothing.
You're like Charlie. I'm like,
the deer in the headlights.
Yeah,
deer in the headlights. We've got look. So
I didn't have a good answer either. It's okay.
I think the stats on that were all right though.
Yeah, I think we did okay.
We got a good one. So sufficiently warmed up, sir? Should we go into the
Let's do it.
Is this professional enough for when we have our special guest next
I think this is professional. This is the banter that we've been talking about. So
these are the banter that you're looking for, right?
Correct.
All right, I have to get my buttons in order. All right, I'll see you in the show. Hey, Jamie. Is your computer frozen?
No, just
good stage.
Marketing. It's marketing. So,
yeah. Well, speaking of marketing, how about I use one of these subtle hints.
Pow!
You can get yourself a Coffee Sketch Podcast mug, just like Jamie's, at this link below. And if you're extra nice, we might even put coffee in the mug for you.
That's correct.
We'd have to figure out how that could happen, but there's the will, there is the way.
Yeah, we'll talk to the cruise director. So,
for those that didn't join the live, we established a new role for Jamie that he doesn't want already.
I'm
the director of his own cruise line.
I'm trying to demote myself just to bartender. So like, I mean, like that there's a lot of pressure in cruise director. Bartender seems a little bit more like it's social, but there's some boundaries.
Yeah, if anybody's listening that is familiar with Fantasy Island / Love Boat, remind us in the
/ Ricardo Montalban / Ricardo Montalban becomes Khan, and then Star Trek. So
yeah, the genealogy of actors, movies, TV shows, and
it's all word association, people. It's all word association.
Jamie's job as cruise director.
Yes.
For episode 149. How about one episode worth?
There's a quiz later. There's a quiz. I promise. But along those same lines, though, is that I will say that as you're talking about sort of these subtle references or the ones that I've just put into this episode, we do this live. The episodes that you are hearing, so this episode that you are hearing right now on your favorite streaming platform, has been edited ever so slightly. Hopefully, we get the gist and the spirit of the content. But yeah, each one of these is live. We do a live green room. So there's an actual bonus aspect to each episode. And in the green room, it's sort of a no holds barred. I mean, we are, I hope I got that phrase right. That's the way that phrase has always been in my head. We're just going to move past it.
Sounds good. Works for me.
So I learned that Kurt's going to go on a cruise. What?
Yeah.
Cruise director. And then I maybe have suggested some cautionary tales. Not that I've ever been on a cruise. I've been on boats.
Oh, wait. I was under the assumption that you have been so your advice was coming from experience.
No, totally not. No. Are you kidding me?
You don't even have a peg leg to stand on.
No, there is no firsthand experience. This is all conspiracy in my brain. So,
well, you know what we say to our watchers, listeners about architecture, right? Is you have to visit the building.
Oh, I'm sorry. I will be happy to hear about your experience. But I will be praying for you as you leave and depart on that from the dock.
We could try and pull off a live stream while on deck.
Hell yeah.
It might be Kurt the bartender, not
No. I want the full FaceTime experience. I want the Kurt with we need to go back old school, when we were first the year one of the podcast, where Kurt was coming out of his phase of going GoPro and trying to do interviews.
Oh yeah,
which sort of led in. Yeah, the roots. We're for the OGs here. We're talking about the roots and the precursor.
It was the prequel or the the genealogy, the lineage of it all.
Folks, you have that favorite band, right? And everybody has that favorite band or two, and that favorite band has that debut album, and then you realize that's really not their debut album. There was an EP before that.
Oh.
And so I like to think of Kurt's foray with the GoPro and interviews as the EP to the Coffee Sketch podcast. Not that the EP was bad. There was I liked the EP.
It's raw.
But it was raw. Yeah.
It's pretty raw.
It was raw.
It was it was fun actually. I kind of, in my infinite amounts of free time, I would love to do that again and just keep them super choppy. You know how YouTube has gotten so, this is going to be, I don't know, controversial to some, but it's very professionally polished. But it all started in a very sort of DIY raw sense.
Oh yeah. Well, if you think about the origins,
it'd be fun to just be raw.
If you think about the origins of this podcast, 2018, New York City, And on that excursion over pizza and beer, we might have birthed the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But also on that,
no, might it was.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
That's really is the origin story. But also on that same trip, maybe a couple hours prior, we were on the High Line with a whole bunch of architects, some of which who have their own podcasts. And Kurt was full on GoPro.
Oh, yeah.
So I think there's maybe lost footage there that would be fun to pull into and maybe do a Mystery Science Theater 3000 podcast episode. So I'm just throwing that out there. If you think that's an awesome idea, just please tell us, and we will go there.
Mark the tape.
Mark the tape.
So let's put a pin in that, because it sounds like a good idea, and move into our coffee of the day or the week. I don't know, the week, the day. So what do you got cooking, brewing? I should say brewing.
This is literally the last pot of the community coffees Mardi Gras, because I have heard that, and I've seen a photo. I've seen a photo of coffee in a box.
Yep.
Like that might be headed to somewhere where boxes get sent
and received. Yes.
And then show up on my porch. So
it's about yay big, enough to fit two bags of Flint coffee. Flint rootless.
Has it been sent yet?
No.
Okay.
I didn't make it out to the. So you're trying to say.
So what I was going to say is you might have forgot that you also were thinking about throwing in a Twin Peaks bag, a damn fine bag, for our friend who we're going to interview.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's time then.
There's time.
But now you got to wait a couple more days, because
I'm not trying to delay my own coffee, but yeah.
Okay. Will do. I can fit it. It should fit.
Okay.
It's all going to go to your house, though.
Yes.
Yeah. So for me, I am still with the rootless no X in espresso, which is it's a dark roast. It's really nice, actually.
Did you try their snow day?
I think I've only had it from the coffee shop. Now I haven't bought any, and apparently it's now sold out.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a seasonal. It comes and goes. Did you read the tasting notes? And
I did.
Intrigue?
And it was intriguing. So I just was curious if you had. I know that.
Yeah.
So Kurt has the opportunity for folks who are just sort of joining the podcast, is that we do have a coffee sketch podcast. We do have a coffee sketch podcast coffee that we've done in collaboration with Rootless, which is a wonderful independent coffee company in Flint, Michigan, of which Kurt has done architectural and design services, but they're also just good people, and they love the art, and they do some great collaborations. And right now they're going on this really kind of interesting bent with some really seasonal special brews, small batch kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, you're getting that one.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Actually, what else? I forgot what's in the bag. I don't know. You're getting 2 of them. Yeah. The first 2.
Yes.
Go. Well, hasn't shipped yet, so I guess we got to.
And then we will do live tastings. So for anybody who's been really worried about my coffee intake,
hopefully there's
we're going to get
something,
that
returning to sender.
Yes, I've got ideas.
Fingers crossed.
Ideas are hatched.
So yeah, that's I like supporting our friends at Rootless. They make good stuff, and And I'm really excited for this whole year. Well, I don't know how long they're going to do it, but they are planning multiples of these small batch release. So, anywho, more to come.
More to come. Exciting
And
stuff.
more cool labels, cool artwork, and good coffee as well.
Yes.
So, should I flash the sketch of the day?
Yes.
You
Let's go.
ready?
Let's go to the sketches.
You're aware of the existence of this fantastic
Yes.
fantastic sketch. There's two technically. So let me try and squeeze them together a little bit. Boop. You know, we get a little zoom. And this. So on the left, actually, I didn't clip out the hashtags that you put on there, but this is this a statue on your Aggie campus at
It is.
Texas A&M? Yeah. Okay.
It is. Yeah. So I was in Aggie Land this week, or this past week, I should say. And yeah, this is Senator Matthew Gaines. So he was a black Texan who was elected to the state Senate in I believe 1870. So this was a Reconstruction era kind of legislator here in Texas. And of course, Reconstruction, has, a storied and sort of difficult history, in many parts of the country. But one of the things that's sort of interesting about him, and the reason why he has a statue at Texas A&M, other than being a state legislator, was that he is sort of credited amongst others about promoting free higher education in the state. And, so kind of the land grant status of Texas A&M in large respect is credited to him as well as a few others. But he was certainly a champion of that, both for Texas A&M as well as Prairie View A&M. And so in 2021, there was a statue dedicated on campus in his memory and for his legacy. And so it's...
Sorry. I was just thinking, was there... is this the first sketch of that? I don't...
No, we have talked about it in the way back, but it's this is definitely a different view of it. Mm-hmm. And so I was there in 2021, shortly after it was dedicated. Actually got to go to a football game with my pops. And so took him over to see it, and he was pretty excited. He loves history, loves art, loves Aggie Land, loves football, loves all the sports. But yeah, this was, this was me kind of revisiting that space again. And I think it's just sort of it's something that, not just to be talked about once, but talked about many times. I think what was interesting about being at A&M this past week, and sort of seeing this statue and sort of in the context of this conversation, I think it was even pointed out that there is and even when this statue was erected, there was a lot of controversy on campus, not necessarily about this statue, but one that was similar scale, similar location, but a former president of the university that had been a governor, basically had helped establish the university, and so kind of the effectively the founding father of Texas A&M, but also had a tie to the Confederacy when Texas was part of the Confederacy. So, not to belabor that point or sort of, talk about it, but I think that the timing of this statue and it being an opportunity to tell a fuller and richer story, and and really a story of sort of a difficult history of the university's birth and sort of growth, I think is really, really important.
Yeah. No, I was aware. I think I was aware of that bit of it. I mean, it's not unsurprising or not surprising that um, um, being in Texas, there's some historical uh, bits that would like to be sort of left behind, but yet you can't undo the past. But just thinking about the sketch, and statues and statue monuments, things like that. Uh, it is interesting. I think your closing sentence, your last sentence, was about uh, you know evolution and growth, right, and moving past various points in time and sort of reflecting on and highlighting positives and things like that, and finding a way to represent that with a statue or a monument, um, which then kind of makes an interesting well, I guess I find it interesting, like this idea of like these things, these statues of humans or groups of humans, things like that, and that as an art form on its own, and how it can uh, provide meaning to place and uh, and location and that they're not necessary. Well, that they don't have to be thought of as permanent all the time. But that's a hard one, I think, for a lot of people, is
Well, I mean,
sort of permanence issue.
well, and I think that was the whole thing that was sort of interesting was, you know, I'm glad we're kind of having this conversation with respect to both these sketches, and then we'll talk about the second one too, because as we've talked about before, um, I have a historic preservation background, that I sort of stumbled into in effect at Texas A&M while I was doing my master's degree. And so I think the stories that we tell about people and places and things, um, are important. And who is telling those stories oftentimes is even more important, or is who is writing those stories and what perspective they're coming at them from. So in the case of, you know this statue of Senator Gaines, I think a lot of the question was, do the students even know who he is? Do they know what this history is? And if they don't, why aren't we telling it? And it was it really was a student-led movement, actually, to establish the statue. And there was a student group, kind of a Matthew Gaines Society, that was established, to fundraise for it and advocate for it. So all those things are extremely important, at an institution that oftentimes is thought of as very, very conservative, kind of in sort of anecdotally at least. But the other statue, is, Sul Ross. And he was, like I said, a governor of Texas, but one of the earliest presidents of the university. Um, but you can't disregard the fact that he was also part of the Confederacy. And I think that completely removing that history, in his particular case, especially with his association to the university itself, its establishment and its governance, kind of early on, wouldn't wouldn't necessarily tell the full story. So I'm kind of the opinion that I understand the difficulties in recognizing it. I'm not sure if a statue is still appropriate or not, but that's sort of maybe a different kind of question and opinion. And we've talked about memorials and markers before, and kind of what that significance should be. So I'm not saying that everybody's gotten it right for sure, but I think that the addition of Gaines's sculpture, and its location on campus, mind you, is really particularly important. Um, but I was at A&M, kind of along these lines, for the 25th annual Historic Preservation Symposium. And so all this stuff sort of in Jamie's mind kind of tied together a little bit.
As we select sketches, every week. It's how the inner workings of Jamie's brain works. So this conference though, is this related to your job in that it's hosted by the state, or is it more hosted by the university?
No, it's not the Texas Historical Commission. This is entirely done by Texas A&M's Department of Architecture and what they now refer to as the Center for Heritage Conservation, which is housed within the College of Architecture. It's a certificate program, so a lot of people are familiar, at least in our industry, when people are hiring a historic preservation consultant. Oftentimes, they have a master's in historic preservation, and so there's plenty of universities that have that sort of specialty. A&M does not have that degree. What A&M has is a Master of Architecture, and you can get a graduate certificate in historic preservation. And what it does, which I like, and I think was the original intention, and that was some of that was discussed at this conference, being that it was a 25th annual, so it was sort of a milestone marker date. But the reason why it's a graduate certificate is because there was a recognition early on that having a center that had a graduate certificate, though most of the degree recipients and certificate recipients would be architecture students, it afforded the university and the department to invite and encourage people from other disciplines to get graduate certificates in historic preservation and be exposed to it. So in succeeding years, a lot of people from other graduate degree plans have gotten certificates in historic preservation and aren't necessarily architects.
I like that idea. I think it makes sense. Actually, the university where I teach does not used to have uh, a concentration for the MArch, the Master of Architecture program. I don't think. I mean, I should I should say that with a little more confidence, right? But no, it doesn't exist. That concentration doesn't exist anymore, and I wonder if there is a potential to revisit that in for the state of Michigan in a sense, right? Something up near our region, because heritage sites or landmarks or historic portions of the city, are won't go away based on the definition, right? As things continue to age, then they have the sort of um, the cataloging of years of heritage and significance, things like the ability to do that.
Well,
So
and the emeritus director, the one who effectively started the center, the research center in the Department of Architecture, but also established the certificate and then taught a majority of the courses, and then brought other colleagues in over time. He was one of the featured speakers. He was a professor of mine, and when he describes it, it was as a certificate program, it was this opportunity to bring in people from other disciplines. Because just as in architecture, we've talked about it a lot. You and I talk about it a lot. It's collaborative. This is not something where it's a solo enterprise. There might be somebody leading a team, but there's certainly lots of players that gets these projects executed. And in historic preservation, absolutely is akin to that, especially with heritage conservation and telling full stories. Think about the concept of oral histories, something that a lot of folks are only now in the last few years hearing that as a term and as a practice, and realizing the importance of that practice, or community engagement related to oral histories. Well, all of that type of work would be centered in a program like this and be inviting of sociologists or others who might specialize in some of those techniques to find themselves in a graduate certificate program related to heritage and conservation. And so that they are bringing their skills to bear, but at the same time collaborating and learning about built history and how that built history needs to be documented. Oftentimes, as you well know, buildings that are in danger of collapse or condemnation or just being generally lost to development, if you can document it, at least at some level, you've preserved a piece of that history, even if the building itself is gone. So it's photo documentation, drawing documentation, measurements, something. And though that's sounds very depressing that it only exists in those kinds of forms, it's still at least an effort at preservation and kind of recognition of that sort of important history. So some of that is part of this discipline, and students get the opportunity to go in and have those kinds of difficult conversations about particular sites and sort of challenges, surrounding it. I myself was on a historic American building survey. That's part of that graduate certificate, and it was mentioned actually in the keynote of this conference, because that particular project was a bit of a turning point in two ways for that program. One, a technological turning point. We were working with the National Park Service as sort of a test case to look at how drawings could move from ink and mylar and all these sort of techniques about preserving things at a certain quality and scale and archival materials for the Library of Congress, and how that could transition to technology of today and doing it with digital.
Yeah.
And kind of blending those two things. And so Texas A&M was working in partnership with the National Park Service, and I just happened to be a student at the time. So the project that I worked on was the first test case of that. The second aspect was the difficult history. Was our site that that professor had chosen was one of the original historic American building survey sites. So from the 30s, when the Works Progress Administration, WPA projects, hired a bunch of out-of-work architects to go around the country and document buildings, document this built history. That's really, how this, started. Well, the site that we had was documented in the 30s, but only the plantation house was documented. So the quote unquote, capital A architecture was documented, but there was no acknowledgement of the rest of the site. So all the other buildings, this ecosystem, was not even acknowledged, with any other reference in that drawing set. And so what we did was we drew the rest of the site. So we surveyed it and documented every other building on site, and all the other people that hadn't also been acknowledged in that original documentation. And so that was added to the Library of Congress for that particular site. So as a grad student, that brought about a whole different perspective about architecture. Mm-hmm. And I'm really feel very fortunate to have effectively stumbled into it. But now I find myself, working for, the State Historic Preservation Office. So there we are.
Well, I think that's something we've always had in common. with different backgrounds, or different pathways to some of the same things that overlap. And so, so yeah, these two sketches are kind of fun to sort of compare and kind of play off of each other in very different ways. But I guess the last comment I'll make is, certain interests that I have to kind of find ways to creatively uh, document things in Flint or locally, before some of them get too many of them get erased. And Yeah, I'll leave it at that because I don't want to open up a can of worms on certain things, but um, just like you said, as things get condemned or demoed for one reason or another, um, there like the sketch, even if it is at least a sketch series of sketches, drawings, a scan, right? I have 3D scanning capability. At least it's somewhere, right? That could be referenced somehow. Anyway, so there's a lot more we could. I'm sure we can try and unpack. And speaking of something I'm working on is in the green room or before the this sort of formal part of the show, I talked about um I, I pulled you out of what do you call it, off the clock, and asked you a question about a detail on a building that I'm working on right now, which I'll have a meeting tomorrow morning about, restoring the cornice on a very Art Deco, awesome um, building in downtown Flint that I'll soon enough have more photographic evidence. It is getting restored, so it's great. But I'm gonna have to try and do some drawings of it now that the weather is broken a little bit. Otherwise, it's kind of cold to stand outside and sketch.
Well, it's funny, it's initially when you sort of said, "I've got this cornice detail I'd like to talk to you about," and I knew that we were going to do this sort of discussion of sort of my last week and some of these sketches. The second sketch is the National Museum of Women in the Arts, and the architect as well as the director of that museum in Washington D.C. And for those who are going to the AIA conference on architecture, this is one of the tour sites. It's a pretty great building, and I will say that Sandra Vicchio, I don't know if I'm saying her last name correctly, um, gave an incredible presentation. So if she is giving the tour, I highly recommend it. Um, but her firm was the design architect and sort of the sort of preservation specialist on bringing this building that was already the museum. It was basically taking it through a modern rehabilitation, and that from both a technological standpoint and a curatorial standpoint, to allow them to show more of their collection, to be more efficient with the way that they use and operate the building, to give the building new life for both the researchers and the curators that are housed within it, but also the people who visit and see the collections. They do a lot of traveling exhibitions of women in the arts, and the galleries themselves were just sort of underperforming. They really hadn't seen a renovation of the building in decades. And the efficiency of the building from an energy and resilience standpoint, it was effectively decaying through use. So a lot of work had to be undertaken. And the way that they both peeled apart those pieces and then reestablished all these functions, there was they didn't say it in their presentation, but the way I thought about it was, and I was going to mention it to you as a professor, is this was a way for a student to see a building, an existing building, deal with comprehensive design. So deal with all the systems, deal with accessibility and energy and structure and function, but do it also with a level of design and care and restraint, emphasizing like big emphasis on restraint, so that you could have these wonderful designed moments where you're like, ooh, that's crisp. That's really amazing sort of design work, and it's contemporary. But at the same time, respecting this, former Mason building, a couple blocks away from the White House. And, I was able to do a kind of a quick sketch. So this is sort of a view in Jamie's sketchbook when he's taking notes during a keynote. But it was great. I really loved it. Thought they were fantastic, and the conference overall was really great as well.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, thanks for that last added bit, because now I'm going to look it up, and there's a lot more things that are going to be popping up for me that I'm gonna need these kinds of details and information. Sort of repurposing, adaptive reuse, things like that. So yeah, thanks for the tip. It's definitely something that takes it's the part of the job that is the marathon, not the sprint. It takes a long time to kind of digest these different details and buildings, and then be able to kind of sort of creatively deploy these tactics on another, because there's so many things you find when you kind of dig in, tear them open a little bit.
Well,
Which I'll send you pictures of the building tomorrow.
I think the word deploy is exactly right. Is that, there's a level of looking and seeing and analyzing, for lack of a better term, and then in that sort of moment is how quickly can one access all of those things that we've seen before and inspired by them, to deploy them, like you say, in a way that's appropriate for the particular project you're working on. So yeah, I want to see the photos, the details alone, folks. From a CAD perspective, it was a bunch of lines on a page with some notes, but it got me excited because it looks like a good project.
Oh, thanks. Yep, just a bunch, just a bunch of lines on and some notes. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, we'll follow. We'll be back next week. I'll have some show and tell, at least in the green room, and then we can formally sort of reveal a little bit more about it. So, all right. Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, Kurt.